in this course, we're going to explore something called the Nibiruan Diodic crystal grid and the checkerboard matrix. This was put in this planetary grid in 25,500 BC, and it is a hideous reverse mathematical program that makes Earth's planetary Merkaba on the density 1 level spin in reverse. They are the nasty Atlantean technologies that the legends talk about, how the divine technologies were misused, the crystalline technologies. Now, I talked about the Nibiruan Diodic crystal grid as a bunch of crystal pylons, all right, big selenite crystal rods. They were originally brought from Nibiru and put on Earth, and a twin set put on parallel Earth. So what we're having here, in order to understand the dynamics by which the Merkaba reversal of the planet has taken place through this, we need to keep an eye on a bit both our Earth and the parallel system, because there's a direct interface that takes place where you might think, what in the world would have enough energy to be able to pull a planet's Merkaba, you know, out of its normal alignment? That's like taking a planet and taking it out of its normal orbit around its sun. You can't just go up and grab it. I mean, you don't run an airplane into it, it's not going to move, you know? It takes a lot, and it takes very sophisticated mechanics and understanding of how Merkabas are supposed to work, so you can figure out how they're not supposed to work but could do you a favor. It was all done through advanced Merkaba mechanics taken into the Antichristos application. Now, there's a lot of information on this graph. I will try to explain the most important parts. I would suggest, just when you have a bit of time, just read all the little parts, because they each tell you a bit about what's going on here. By the time you read them, I think you'll be able to, from what I explain here and from what's on there, you'll probably be able to say, oh, all right, I basically get how, you know, how that technology was used and has been being used until very recently. All right, here we have the solar gate, all right, the sun, right? Here we have the planets that would normally evolve around the sun, all right, revolve around the sun. We had, running from, you know, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Chiron, which actually, Chiron was connected to Nibiru originally. It was like a moon of Nibiru before this went someplace else, and I'll show you where else it went. This is the solar Merkaba field here, okay? You have the electrical one here, and you have the magnetic one here, I believe, yeah. And the solar one is supposed to run on 33 1/3 by 11 2/3. All right, that's when it's working right. You have your moon here. This becomes important. You have Earth, you have moon, okay? You have Earth's Merkaba, it's magnetic Merkaba doing what it's supposed to here. All right, this is the normal alignment. Now right here, there's actually another planet. It was called Maldak, and it was destroyed in Seeding 2. There were a bunch of wars, and during the 1,000 Years' War period, it was destroyed. It was literally blown up. And now what we have here is the asteroid belt that's between Mars and Jupiter. That's the remnants of Maldak. Okay, so this is how things are supposed to work over here. Now, originally Nibiru had the same type of rotation and the same, you know, Merkaba field spin rates as any density 1 planet was supposed to have when it was on its Christos blueprint. Originally, it was a planet that was part of our solar system. Now, over here was the parallel version of that. And it's the same. See how they're actually like the reverse spiral? But the parallel operates on that principle. And there was a parallel Nibiru before it got its orbit got reversed. There's parallel Earth before it ended up with grid distortions. This is what's going into roll in, you know, in the next few years. You know, the parallel moon. And so you just notice the difference here. Here, it's an electrical coming, like you have the primary electrical, that's the dominant one in parallel Earth. Magnetic is the primary dominant Merkaba field on Earth. So just notice when you're looking at the diagram how things are spiraling, right? So all telling you, basically, this is the basic structure of how galactic Merkaba plugs in to a solar system through the suns that literally creates, this is what creates the orbit planes that planets evolve around their suns on. It's the spinning of the Merkaba fields that create the spinning of the planets, that fuel the energy dynamics, that create the electrical magnetic fields that allow planets to evolve around suns and to stay in position. All right, now down here at the bottom, I'll show you this a bit. All right, this is the galactic Merkaba, okay? That would be the sun at the center, and this would be the orbital plane of the particle universe, or the particum universe, ours, and then literally running in its opposite in the same place is the antiparticle universe, the parallel, right? Now normally the planets were evolving on this rotation, all of them. There are certain things done to Nibiru that involve even more weird things up in the higher harmonic, the higher density of the phantom matrix. They have to do with the planet I talked to you a little bit about, I think yesterday. It was called Tiamat. There was a part of Terra. They've used that, and they've used an artificial link between Tiamat, the solar gate, and Sirius A up through Arcturus. They've literally created a set of false Merkaba fields that link reverse matrix planetary grids together, so they create a very strong, it's almost like creating an anti-Christos infrastructure for their universe. This has been done over billions of years, but I believe Nibiru is literally, there's a saying that comes to mind that I first heard when my beloved husband said it in reference to something. He said, it goes up and down like a bride's nightie. I remember thinking, what? Oh, it was kind of funny. Well, it's been up in its right rotation, then it's been sucked down into phantom, then it's been turned back around again and put back up and moved back down again. This place has gone through pole shift more than I think anything in our local system, because it's a primary spot because it connects directly to Solar Stargate 4, Universal Solar Stargate 4. So it's always just like Earth connects to Solar Stargate 3, Universal. That's why these two places were very important in the history of this time matrix. So this strange-looking orbit here is what happened in Nibiru. It used to be in this plane with the rest of ours in our galaxy, and its parallel used to, be in that plane also in parallel. There were dynamics made using external Merkaba that harnessed a piece of, I believe it was, what was a piece of Maldak? It was either a piece of Maldak or a piece of Tiamat. I forget which it was. I'd have to look for the specific detail. But let's see if it's on here. No, it isn't on here. But anyway, this is where Nibiru and Wormwood came to be. So you had planet Nibiru, and you'd have Battlestar Nibiru, which was called Wormwood in the Bible. That was the artificially created. It was literally a planet that was using artificial Merkaba and using stargates in ways they're not supposed to be used. They literally harnessed a large chunk of space debris, and I believe that, yep, that is, it was part of Maldak. That's why it comes through this orbit. That's right. Okay, I'm just reminding myself of stuff. I haven't done this one in a while. So you have Nibiru and Battlestar Wormwood. Wormwood was large enough to create a counterbalance. So literally, by dragging a piece of what used to be Maldak into an orbital plane with Nibiru and sending it on a different rotation, they keep each other in balance, and they create the foundations for an artificial Merkaba field that can be run in reverse. So they literally circulate now. Now this axis change, instead of it running this way, their Merkaba is now running this way at a different angle because it's being held by the higher gate systems that are reversed in phantom matrix. What they're trying to do is get this to happen to Earth, where we'd end up as like a satellite planet to Nibiru. But we go through a heck of a cataclysm. In the meantime, everything would get vaporized and reassembled when it got back to, to the phantom matrix, and it would be reassembled without any of its 12 imprints. It wouldn't have any of the D12 imprints, so it would be fragmented. So the forms that come out over on this side, once you get through that black hole of the phantom matrix, they are distortions. They are distortions of what the original was. So a person that got sucked through would not have the ability to hold as much consciousness or to keep themselves together or to think as clearly over there as they would be able to hear if they were running their D12 frequency. So anyway, what they're trying to do, this literally dips in and out of the phantom matrix. It circles up. When it comes into our system, it comes in, it has, well, it's not on this one, but it is in the book, I think. When you look in the book, I have the exact orbital. Okay, all right. Nibiru and Wormwood pass into density 1, coming in behind the Sun and passing up between Mars and Jupiter, which was the every 3,657.8 years, remaining visible for 28 years. Last visible 46 BC through 18 BC. Nibiru do visible 3,611.8 AD through 3,639.8 AD. So it's not Nibiru that's coming in. Everybody's talking about, oh, Nibiru's going to come. The Zetas love this story. Oh, Nibiru's going to come. Nobody can stop it. Your place is going into cataclysm. You're going to have, like, fire, brimstone, all that stuff. And we're here to try to help you through it. But it's because Nibiru comes in. And every time Nibiru comes in, it just so happens to disrupt the magnetics in your system, and it just so happens to throw you in a pole shift. Yeah, right? There's a lot of help doing this. What is taking place is, all right, first of all, this orbit, I want you to understand this orbit, it connects up into Sirius A. All right, so it literally, the whole, let's say, the matrix where this planet can circulate into our matrix and then back out into Phantom is up through Sirius A. It uses the Sirius A gate to circulate through. It goes through the solar gate, part of the Terran gate, and through the Sirius A gate. And that connects it directly through the 3 gates into Phantom. Now, what's coming in is Wormwood, the battle star. The way this orbit is held in motion to keep Nibiru in that orbit, that battle star has to be directly on the other end of it. So they have a completely, when one goes out, the other comes in. When one goes out, the other comes in. That's what allows that whole shift, unnatural shift in orbital plane to take place. Now we'll come back up to this stuff. Okay. This was how it's supposed to look normally, right? The solar Merkaba fields and how they plug into the planetary ones, how a planet plugs in through its sun into the galactic Merkaba field. That's how it's supposed to be. Now, here we go. This is a little challenging to try to explain verbally. Writing was a little easier. Okay, go back to Stonehenge and the Nibiruan Dodic crystal grid, crystal implants. Okay, let's say this is on Earth, right? See that little hairy looking thing there? That's the Nibiruan Dodic crystal grid, crystals on Earth. There was another set of them also over here in parallel Earth that were on the exact same coordinate point, the point in the shields that were where this place was the same place as that place, okay? It turned out where this was placed was between 𝐶-Site 11 and Stargate 11. So when when 𝐶-Site 11 would activate in the stellar activation cycle, it would send normal frequency through, it'd get hit by this thing, or run through that thing, get reversed, come back out and open Stargate 11 on a reverse matrix. The higher stargates will control the spin of the lower ones. So by getting Stargate 11, they would literally be able to reverse the entire Merkaba of the planet, which would take it directly into that same orbital. It would go through into the black hole system. Now, it's interesting is where'd that wormwood go? Is it like, what do you mean coming in? We may have some interesting things taking place in the next several years. There's a thing that's happening now. If this was allowed to do what it was doing, all right, if there wasn't something that was done during a stellar activation cycle, especially, that changed this whole lineup. Because see, there's a lineup here. This frequency, there's like a pillar of frequency that ran between Earth and parallel, right through those grids, right through the Nibiruan Dodic crystal grid. Now, there's a complex thing that's taking place here. Here you have the solar gate, okay? Here you have Earth. Here you have Wormwood. And here you have Nibiru. So when this rotates, now this has an energy beam, an electromagnetic beam, a sonic beam, that is anchoring in to Earth through the crystal grid. And even though the stones are there now, the tops aren't on them. So they're still transmitting the program that's still running reverse from parallel. Wormwood broadcasts to the Earth grid and anchors there, and that's where it sends it through Earth's shield, so it can literally change the angle of Earth's Merkaba. See how it's supposed to look? This is the angle now. See, this is the open spot, right? Look at it, it shifted it over this way. It's holding that angle through Wormwood, and what's holding Wormwood is Nibiru, and what's holding both of them all together is the Sun. The Sun was key to this. The Sun is solar gate 4, or Universal Stargate 4. And a while back, before all the chaos began, certain Nibiruan races were trying to get their planet back into its normal order. They were going to, they had joined the Emerald Covenant, and they were finally, after quite a few thousand years of evolution of doing well on Nibiru, were entrusted as the Nibiruan Council. There was levels of it, Nibiruan Council of 9, 12, and 24. They were accepted into the Guardian Alliance teams as far as Stargate Guardians. And they were part guardians of Stargate 4. Well, they were, for a while, when we had our guys on the planet as well, they were full guardians of Stargate 4, and partial guardians of Stargate 5, the Terran Gate, which is the Alcyone Terran Gate. When they decided, the Nibiruans decided to do the United Anunnaki resistance stuff, and they defected. They literally used their Templar to get control of Gate 4. That allowed them the ability to create this artificial, demonic link. Think of these as broadcasting stations. They form pillars of light, just like we form standing wave pillars when we do our rounds and things. These have been holding in our grids and holding the Earth's Merkaba on its unnatural rotation since 25,500 BC. Things got worse as these programs, the mathematics that were being sent here, once they had this link, and see, there's a parallel link. They had to do the same thing in the parallel system to be able to balance the grids, or they would have collapsed both of them. This is how it's all held in motion. If this planetary stargates open, if the planet hits a stellar activation cycle with this configuration, it will immediately cause it to go into, within like a 3 or 4 year period after, I think, Gate 6 opens. Yeah, 3 or 4 years after that, it would just send it into a roll. It would clear the real estate. They were planning on that. That was part of their agenda, the Anunnaki agenda. Parallel Earth is at the point where this can't be reversed. Even if you took out this grid now, there's still too much damage done to the grids. They will never pick up enough grid speed, even if you immediately put them right back to their spin, where you could stop it from pole shifting. They're going, they're rolling. Over here, first of all, we're directly linked through this transmission beam. But even if we weren't linked through the Nibiruan grid, we are linked through the natural exchange of the Merkaba fields between parallel and here. There are very special things that are being done with the Trion Miage fields, the primal light and sound currents, the radial body mechanics that correspond to the Kira and the Kundere, real high frequency primal stuff. Where they're going to, this is what we're trying to help build. It's going to create a frequency that comes down and creates a barrier here so we don't roll as they start to go. That's after some of the other stuff gets done. The other stuff that needs to get done, and we've already started this, and this is part of what they're trying to counteract right now, because it was successful when it was done. To get this alignment back to its natural alignment so Earth can pass through the stellar activation cycle without going into roll, implies that these lines need to be broken. See, look at it, it's even anchored through the moon. The moon-sun connection, the Earth-Wormwood connection, the Wormwood-sun connection, all the way through to Nibiru. All of those artificial frequency structures need to be turned off, because if they're not turned off, it's going to roll. Now, turning them off means, first of all, here is the place where they anchor in Earth's grids. So there is the place that you can turn them off from, down here. To turn them off, you would simply, and this is what has already been done, you would run the divine blueprint into the planetary shields in that area, which would simply return all the reverse matrix codes to what they were supposed to be. So no matter how much this beamed in, as soon as it hit those grids, it'd reverse it to a Christos current. It'd reverse it from an antichristos back to a Christos current. However, what it will progressively do is send a backflow up, and it will sever that. Now, if that just severed without very important mechanics being done to catch that end of Earth's Merkaba, it would roll anyway. So what's being done, this has been dismantled so far. That was done in July of 2002, wasn't it? No, that's not here yet. 2001, July of 2001. And they're trying to get it hooked back up again, but this was done. Now, something called Trion Miage fields, using the Vecca codes, we've been progressively assisting the Guardians and learning how to build these. The Guardians know how to build them, and they've been building one to plug in, literally, using the primal currents of the primal light and sound currents to grab this end of the Merkaba, gently ease it back into alignment. And there's going to be a little bit of actually moving this too, so they gently come back into alignment. Without that, we'd be on evacs by now. All right. Now, once this is restored to where it's supposed to be, this is supposed to go back fully to this position, which means this point needs to come back to down here. Right. Then there's a little problem of this one, and this one, and this one. But what do you think might happen if you break any one of those? It's like something assembled with elastic bands. Yeah. So, this is being worked on at the moment. See, the Nibiruans were offered a choice repeatedly. They knew that if we were successful in anchoring Divine Blueprint here, it was going to snap their line, which means they were going to roll. They didn't care. They don't care. They're not telling their own people that live on Nibiru. But the ones, Galactic Federation, all those guys, they know, they're expendable. They'll come back again. They've rolled so many times there, it's like they don't even care anymore. They don't look at life the same way that we do here. But this is why there's been so many efforts being made by the Guardian races to try to get them to work agreements, to try to say, come on, we don't have to keep fighting. This is really dumb. You know, because for us to do what we're here to do, which is reset Divine Blueprint, and at this point, that's absolutely necessary to protect the life field on this planet because of what they're doing. It's going to cause them a backlash. We're not doing it to them. They're doing it to themselves because all they had to do is stop these transmissions. They're frequency transmissions that run on perpetual motion external Merkaba generators that they have, you know, in their own Templar complexes. All they have to do is shut them off. That would break this link. They would have had help in getting their Merkaba back, getting their orbital back the way it was supposed to be. They were offered the same assistance that is being given now to assist Earth in getting her Merkaba back in space. But they rejected it. And at this point, Parallel's going to roll because of what they've done, and Nibiru is going to roll because of what they've done. Now, if this rolls, Solar Stargate 4 is in the process of being fully recoded. It's literally, we're breaking this connection which will enable us to run Divine Blueprint through it and recode it back to its original structure, which means it goes back under protection of the Azerite Council, which are, you know, the Gate Councils, the Templar security team. Then there's this little guy here, Wormwood. If you break that, and you break that, yeah, it's going to have a bit of a problem on its own. Now, right now, they haven't come up yet. They're not fully into our system yet. There is a chance that this will, or a piece of this will, come back up and we'll have some asteroid issues to deal with. Now, if it came back up whole, the thing has more mass than Earth does, because Nibiru is bigger and it had to balance Nibiru. It'd literally take out part of our solar system, not just our planet. So this is being watched closely by the Founders races, and when it begins, there's certain points where it can be blown up before it does any damage. And you can't do it at just any point, so they're watching at which point they can before it enters here and comes up between Mars and Jupiter, before it does that. Somewhere in through this cycle, as it's moving still through Phantom, they will try to reduce it to pieces. Some of those pieces may still be caught in, because you still have a Merkaba spinning, and it's going to start spinning and wobbling and those kind of things. They're going to try to stabilize this orbit until they can flatten it back down here, because it's going to throw all sorts of wacky things through the asteroid belt. You're going to get really weird electromagnetics happening. We're also having solar gate realignment. That started in 1972. But at this point, all of these things are being realigned. This is the little nasty setup that has kept us imprisoned for all these years. And there are various points. It anchors into Stonehenge, but there are a whole bunch of other grids that distribute it through the planetary shields and hold it there. There are 24 main points that are called Nibiruan Crystal Temple bases. They are the underground bases you hear about in the UFO movements. The underground bases in the UFO movements were put there because these are the control stations.